This is Mack Truck, a.k.a. a.k.a. your worst nightmare. This is Mack Truck, a.k.a. a.k.a. your worst nightmare.
Quote of the day. Our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. The Dalai Lama. Welcome in. This is a Tuesday edition of the Mack Truck Podcast here on Podbean, Spotify, and wherever else you get your audio streaming pleasure. I am your hostess with the mostest, Mackenzie Brooks, a.k.a. the Mack Truck, a.k.a. your worst nightmare. Tuesday, July 9th, 2024, the week following the 4th of July and festivities. So if you guys celebrated in any kind of way, I hope you were safe. I hope you had a wonderful time celebrating the birth of America. No matter which way you celebrate it, whether you celebrate America or you celebrate in another way, we just hope that you are safe and sound. Unfortunately, we do have to start out the podcast on a very somber note. For those of you who have not heard yet, Minnesota Vikings rookie star Khyree Jackson, along with two of his former high school teammates, were killed in a car collision on the 6th of this month in the state of Maryland. It was a 3-car crash that occurred at 3:14 a.m. in Prince George's County, Maryland. Isaiah Hazel and Anthony Lighton, both of them who were Khyree Jackson's former high school teammates, were also killed in the crash with him. Isaiah Hazel, 23 years old, played at the University of Maryland and the University of Charlotte. Anthony Lighton, who was 24, played for Florida State University and Penn State University as well. And this news is brought to you partly by Kevin Cipher and the news crew for the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network, that is ESPN. On the same news cycle and interview, police said Hazel was driving a Dodge Charger with Jackson in the passenger seat when their car was struck by an Infiniti Q5 that was attempting to change lanes at a high rate of speed. The Charger left the road and struck multiple tree stumps. According to police, Jackson and Hazel were pronounced dead at the scene, while Lighton was transported to a hospital before being pronounced dead at the hospital by hospital personnel. The driver of the Infiniti Q50 and the two passengers in her vehicle and the passengers, the third vehicle that was involved, were not injured. Investigators do believe that there was alcohol involved with this accident, so they do presume that played a role in the crash. Police said adding to the charges would be pending during said investigation. Khyree Jackson played 2 seasons under Nick Saban at the University of Alabama, then transferred to Oregon and became an all Pac-12 first team selection for the year of 2023 under Dan Lanning. Jackson was also drafted by the Vikings in the 4th round and had been considered a top contender for the starting cornerback spot. And I'm just going to preface my comments by saying anybody that has driven semi or played a sport of any kind and has gotten behind a wheel of any kind under the influence of any kind, you're not only putting yourself at risk, but you are putting the livelihood of other people at risk. And the fact that there seems to have been a lapse of judgment by the driver of this semi that has now taken the lives of 3 young gentlemen away from this world, and as far as putting other people at risk, there's going to be consequences. Anybody that knows the world of commercial driving and CDL licenses, any trace of drugs, alcohol, anything that can literally impede your driving and judgment from a sober state is 90% of the time is automatic grounds for termination. So depending on what company this person works for, drives for, that type of thing will determine obviously the outcome of their job, and more importantly, the outcome of what legality charges they will pick up, because they will pick up some. And I just hope that everybody else that has survived, with the driver included, I hope everybody that has remained from this accident is still in decent enough shape, considering they have their lives. For the families and players and friends and teammates of the players that have lost their lives, Khyree Jackson, Isaiah Hazel, and Anthony Lighton, we give nothing but prayers and respect and condolences, especially considering they were just so young in their lives. Not even the fact that they're athletes, not even the fact that they were going to college, getting into the NFL, but the fact that they're young human beings is absolutely heartbreaking to me. And I just hope that, unfortunately, because more of this type of thing is going to happen, people's lives are going to be taken into jeopardy. But we also don't know what's going on in that driver's life. We don't know if they have some kind of substance abuse. We don't know what's going on in their life. They could be fighting demons. That does not make it any better, but it does put things into perspective. The point of the matter is, if you are going to do that, you need to make sure that you are not behind a company wheel of any kind, number one. Number two, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Find a driver, call an Uber, find an alternative way to get home safely or get to a safe destination where you're not putting yourself, your company, your livelihood, other people's livelihoods at stake. It's not worth it. And it's kind of crappy. And I'm not going to sit here and, no pun intended, beat a dead horse, but just the entirety of the fact that I feel like we've had to have very similar conversations within the past couple months as far as people making better decisions with things in their life. And sometimes it just doesn't happen, and I'm not here to really judge, but I am here just to give another type of perspective. Furthermore, this podcast is brought to you by the In My Bag apparel creative clothing line by Evan Thunder Bradfield, and as well as the podcast that he co-hosts in the 3-Man Weave podcast with Evan, Caleb Bradfield, and Big D Money himself, found on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you get your audio streaming pleasure. Also included in there is Apple Music. Also brought to you by Chopping It Up with P. Scott Prescott Kelly. Also found on StreamYard, Facebook Live, Spotify, and wherever else you get your audio and viewing streaming pleasure. Now, some topics on the podcast are in rebuttal to P. Scott's latest episode, and you're going to understand why I say they're in rebuttal, because Prescott is a couple years older than me, so he's in just a little bit older of a generation, but not by much. But one of the topics that he talked about on his podcast, this past episode rather, from the weekend, was which generation is the better one, or has had it the best, that type of thing. And I have a rebuttal to that. And I'm not even going to consider it much of a rebuttal. I'm going to say it's more of a compromise when it comes to his generation and my generation, because we're not super far apart, but we're far enough apart to where we're in two separate generations. Also going to talk about, again, another rebuttal from him. Another topic he had on his episode this week was the outlook on Bronny James and whether or not he would end up being better than his father. We don't know. And he used some good comparisons, but I have an even better one. And we're going to get to that here soon. Also going to talk about NBA free agency dating back to last week in terms of some of the big moves, things like that. And then obviously WNBA recap, and then the reflection to the question that I had asked. Excuse me. The answer to the question I'd asked in the podcast group and on my social media. And if you don't remember what that question is, that question was, outside of Caitlin Clark already having played over half of the WNBA season, as we are currently talking right now, who has the bigger target on their back, Bronny James or Caitlin Clark? Furthermore, we'll get into that here. I apologize. Getting over a little bit of laryngitis, and sometimes lots of talking when you're trying to talk through laryngitis is a terrible thing, but we're going to move it on. This broadcast is also brought to you by The Truth Barbering Shop, 6563 University Avenue, Winter Heights, Iowa, here in Winter Heights, Des Moines, West Des Moines, depending on where you live. The barbering and beard styling of Gary Duke Williams and Chris Fats, the barber Dixon, both of them themselves barber and beard extraordinaires. So make sure you are booking with them via Facebook or their website, which is also found on facebook.com. Make sure you tell them the Mack Truck sent you, and make sure you're getting in for a fresh cut. Even if you have a barber, there's absolutely nothing wrong with branching out. There's nothing wrong with seeing what other talent and styles are out there. So big shout out to them. This broadcast is also brought to you by the 806 Sports Radio Show in Texas and the Sip Off with none other than Megan Price herself. And we're glad to see that she's finally getting things back under her footing. And I can't wait for another episode of the Sip Off. If you don't know what the Sip Off is, Megan Price, who is the queen of hoops, I don't care what none of y'all say. If you listen to her content and watch and just listen to her experiences, that woman is the queen of hoops. She's really one of the queens of sports when it comes to the smaller divisions and smaller marketing reaches in terms of shows and sporting content, things like that. Fact of the matter is, her and the Sip Off squad, whoever may be on the panel for that day, always talk sports, mainly hoops though, and find some nice adult beverage or even water to sip on, literally, hence the name, the Sip Off. This broadcast is also brought to you by Patton That Whiskey. Dan and Jen Patton and their exotic whiskey blend, which is also the incredible story of how they met, and I, for one, loved it. They are the official liquor and alcohol sponsors of the Mack Truck Podcast, so make sure, again, you're finding them on Instagram at them Pattons, literally the @ sign and them Pattons. Pretty sure you're going to find it right as you start to type it in. And obviously, we can't have a podcast and broadcast without the background music and the stylings of Mad Noise Entertainment and Freddie F. Morris, who are the people and person and squad and production crew who has created the background music and theme song for this. Also brought to you by Camilo Rodriguez with CCR Webflow and Design, or better known as the wonderful individual who created the logo for the Mack Truck Podcast. So make sure you're getting your website needs, your logo needs, and things redesigned and created by him. CCR Webflow and Design. That's ccr.webflow.io on the interwebs. And obviously, this broadcast is brought to everybody by you guys, the listeners, the supporters. Because like I said, if I don't have listeners and an audience, I don't have a platform, and I don't get to do this weekly with you guys. And I surely really do enjoy it. Also, more on the docket in terms of just housekeeping and homework. The next card show for the hashtag card traffickers will be September 6th and 7th, again, at 480 Bass Pro Lane Northwest in Altoona, Iowa, better known as the Hyatt Place Hotel. Friday the 6th will be from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturday the 7th will be 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. as well. Again, food, sports cards, TCG cards, vintage cards, Pokemon cards. Only change this time will be that the mingling and card trading and deals like that will now be focused solely out on the promenade and the beautiful view that is the promenade and back patio scene of the Hyatt Place Hotel. If you have not been out here, I highly suggest you get out there or Google it or find a way to get yourself in front of it before this event, because this event that we threw just at the beginning of June, so just over a month ago, flew, and now we're turning it back around for September. The other event that we will be doing is the community kickoff presented by 84 Fresh and In My Bag Apparel creative clothing line. Saturday, August 24th, we're still looking for vendors and sponsors. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure you are hitting up at 84 Fresh on Instagram. That's the word 80, the number 4, and the word fresh on Instagram. You can also tap in with the In My Bag Apparel Instagram page with Evan Bradfield at @inmy_bag 2023. Either one of those pages. It's going to be $30 for outdoor tables, $50 for indoor tables. Like I said, music, food, jewelry, clothing, artists, barbers, games, anything else. And obviously, the Mack Truck Podcast will be there as part of the media and entertainment sponsorships and partners for this event. So again, Car Traffickers, September 6th and 7th at the Hyatt Place Hotel in Altoona. And the Community Kickback, Saturday, August 24th, again, presented by 84 Fresh and In My Bag Apparel, 8801 University Avenue in Clive for that address. Moving on into the meat and potatoes of the docket here on the Mack Truck Podcast. Gonna talk some NBA free agency, and we have a laundry list of just things that we have kind of, I'm not gonna say skipped, because I was trying to wait until there was a little bit more that I could talk about and give content or give my opinion and outlook on. So we finally have more than enough to get that started. So here we go. Again, you can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and just a charcuterie board of places and varieties for y'all to find this almost decent content. First up, Paul George agrees to a 4-year max contract worth $212 million rather, with Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers. He also joins Tyrese Maxey with that squad too. Tyrese Maxey also agreed to a 5-year, $204 million contract with the 76ers as well. And he damn deserves it. I'll tell you that. Tyrese Maxey is a G. Okay. Joel Embiid, if he can stay healthy, also a G. But I don't know if adding Paul George really puts the 76ers over the top in terms of progressing to that next level of getting into the Eastern Conference playoffs and finals and that type of thing. But, you know, that's what off seasons are for. We make money, or we make money moves in the off season. We give contracts, we negotiate current contracts to see if we can get any more cap space to get people, things of that nature. And it's also obviously the heart of NBA free agency with the off season. That is. So we will look forward to seeing more in terms of the Paul George camp. Next on the list in terms of just NBA free agency and things that have come out of the world of the National Basketball Association. Also, this news is presented to you by, again, ESPN, or the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network, with Adrian Wojnarowski, which is where we are getting 99% of this information. Donovan Mitchell signs a 3-year max extension worth $150.3 million, including a player option for the season of 2027 and 2028. Currently, his contract is 4 years for $185 million, which would total, really, with getting that 10-year option that he's also now secured with signing this new contract, would literally put him in the ballpark of just about $380 million in 2027, pursuing another 5-year extension, which would put him right at that $380 million. That's ridiculous. But again, some of the players on this list that I'm reading you right now and giving to you in terms of your information that you may or may not have already known, Donovan Mitchell is him. Donovan Mitchell has been shipped around just a little bit, but I feel like has started to get his shine really being with the Cavs. So we look forward to seeing what other kind of moves the Cavaliers pick up within, the next couple of weeks, next couple of months or so, before they start to get back into reworking, preseason workouts, that type of thing. So we look forward to it. Derek White also agrees on a 4-year, $125.9 million extension with Boston. That also includes the player option in, I believe, 3 years. is what I read. I could be wrong, but that's why we always are able to go back and make corrections when we do another episode. So don't sit out here and try to do all some random stuff trying to call me out. If I'm wrong, but I'm going to find out later. Yeah, fact of the matter is Derek White has him a ring, and his running mate or court running mate, friend, brother, however you want to say it, and Jason Tatum. Listen, Jason Tatum also agrees to a 5-year, $314 million extension, which is now the largest contract in NBA history. Trailing him is the NBA Finals MVP in Jaylen Brown at $285 million. The Joker, Nikola Jokic, $276 million, and Bradley Beal at $251 million in terms of those who trail being the top 4 with the highest paying contracts in NBA history, or just their behind history rather. And obviously one of the biggest headlines in terms of NBA free agency, one half of the Splash Brothers, that is Klay Thompson, does unfortunately make his way out of the Golden Gate area, that is the Golden State Warriors, and lands himself in Dallas, of all places, with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. He does agree to a 3-year, $50 million contract with the Dallas Mavericks, and frankly, I'm not upset about it. I don't personally, as far as a fan, I don't personally have anything against the Dallas Mavericks. I think even still to this day, Kyrie's cold as hell. I think Luka Doncic is also cold as hell, but they need a third shooter. And that third shooter comes in the form of Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson, literally now, all he has to do is catch the ball and shoot. And keep up with the closeout defending. And I think the biggest misconception as far as, Klay Thompson wanting out or departing from the Golden State Warriors is partly because of how the Warriors are structured. It's always been Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, and Draymond Green, which in turn recreated the meaning of a big three. Really, point guard, shooting guard, and 3-4 position with Draymond, who could really play the 5 because he's just that aggressive when he's not just out here doing extra stuff. Point of the matter is that the Golden State Warriors had to step back and look at who was unfortunately the most expendable. Right now, at that very moment in time, it was unfortunately Klay Thompson. He had 2 injuries back-to-back, tore his ACL in that NBA series versus Toronto, and then almost, I believe, 8-10 months later into the next season, tore his Achilles and just hasn't quite been the same. But there have been glimpses of him coming back into very similar form to what we know him to be. And I still think with this fresh start that he's getting in Dallas with Kyrie and with Luka, I think his percentages, and we're going to start to see glimpses of the old Klay Thompson again. I think with the change of scenery, it may even, change the mindset a little bit. I know his running mate, one of his best friends and other half of the Splash Brothers, that is Stephen Curry, stated in an interview, and I am paraphrasing because I don't have a lot of those other notes in front of me. He did state that he never could imagine Klay playing anywhere but in Golden State with him and Draymond, and obviously wish nothing but the best for his former teammate, still brother, and one of his best friends in terms of the sport, and just them having grown that relationship for the longest since they have become really a big three. So big shout out to Klay Thompson, and big shout out to everybody who's gotten their money. Other news coming out of Golden State, I feel like has now, I don't want to say replacement, but that's essentially what this person is, in Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield signs, I believe, a 3-year contract with the Golden State Warriors, and he essentially takes Klay Thompson's spot as the next, or that 1-2-3 combo guard. I even think he shoots a little bit better than Klay right now, only because Klay, as we know it, is a little bit of a, I'm not going to say enigma because that's kind of downplaying, but in terms of the injuries and trying to make a good comeback coming off of those injuries, being able to show it, like teams like, hey, like I can still play. I may have been hurt, but I'm still here. I'm still efficient. I'm still productive. That type of thing. I think you take Klay Thompson and put him in Dallas, and you take Buddy Hield and put him in Golden State. I think you get a very similar, look and formula when it comes to like the thought of a big three. I just don't know, again, and it goes back to kind of what I was saying with Paul George going to the 76ers. I don't know if putting Buddy Hield in the place of Klay Thompson and moving Klay Thompson to the Dallas Mavericks off a sign-and trade, I don't know if that propels Golden State back into what they have been known for in terms of taking teams into long series and dragging it out and then just being able to close out because of their shooting alone. But we'll see. You also still have Andrew Wiggins. You also have Jonathan Kuminga, who is, ironically enough, making his own kind of statement when it comes to just getting into the league, getting his footing, and finally getting his pro stroke. Kind of like we were talking about with some players in the WNBA finding their pro strokes. Jonathan Kuminga is that next person in the line. So we're going to see what the outlook in terms of the rest of NBA free agency, more or less. Right now we got the NBA Summer League going on as well. We're going to get to that here in just a minute, but kind of to switch gears, for those of y'all who have been following this Ryan Garcia boxing, I guess we're going to call it a scandal. I mean, I'm not real sure what else the hell to call it, because Ryan Garcia lately has just really been out here doing entirely too much, or really not enough at all when it comes to just, I don't know, representing yourself in a respectable manner. And respectable meaning respectable in terms of the company that you keep. Respectable in the manner of representing yourself, your sport, your family in a respectable manner. Going on Instagram and other various social media platforms and blatantly using racial slurs, probably not the way to go. So for those of you who don't quite remember, Ryan Garcia did beat Devin Haney on pay-per-view on 420. He was suspended for what is supposed to be 365 days for the discovery of PED usage after urine test after the fight had come back negative or positive for PEDs. And there was urine tests and hair samples taken the day before the fight and the day of the fight as well. He was now recently expelled by the World Boxing Council, again, for going onto social media and basically making an ass out of himself. And I mean, and it happens to everybody. I don't give a damn who you are. You don't have to be a celebrity. Sometimes we get into those situations where we just don't know when to shut the hell up. And that is what happened to Ryan Garcia. I am not condoning anything that came out of his mouth because frankly, I think it's fucking disgusting. I really do. I think it was disgusting. I thought it was very thoughtless. But again, sometimes when you're in the moment of something, words fly, things come out of your mouth, but racial slurs don't just come out of your mouth. You're taught to be racist. You're taught to be a dick like that. So somebody somewhere in Ryan Garcia's lifetime really was doing too much. Like, you must have been upset about something. I don't give a damn what it is. You're taught to be racist. You're taught to say disgusting things like that. And I'm not saying Ryan Garcia is a racist. So let's get that thoughts out of our mind right the hell now. But what he said is not a good look for him right this very second, especially having already been suspended and now you're being expelled by the World Boxing Council. And if my memory serves me correctly, I don't think he has any belts in the WBC. I could be wrong though, but I'm almost positive he doesn't have any belts in that installment of boxing. Again, he's still serving 1-year suspension from the New York State Athletic Commission for the discovery of the PEDs from the 420 fight. And that 420 fight was also deemed a no contest. And then was also arrested in June, like early June, on felony vandalism charges, literally from an incident at a Beverly Hills hotel in California that accused him literally of causing upwards towards $15,000 in damage. And again, look at it. This news and content comes from the ESPN news services itself. So again, if you want to look this up, that's where you can find it. That's where we do all of our citing. And of course, we do citing from any other engine that we get our content from in terms of regularly and just giving it back to you guys from a X post from Ryan Garcia's promoter, who happens to be the Golden Boy in Oscar De La Hoya. Again, this is a quote via X, and you can find this at Oscar De La Hoya on X. Quote, "There is no room for hate or intolerance at my company. Period. I condemn Ryan's words in the strongest terms possible. Period. I see that he has apologized. That is a start, but it is only a start to earn back the trust and respect of those of us who have continue and will continue to support him. We hope Ryan will use the time he has away from the sport to work through the issues he has publicly discussed. We stand ready to help in whatever way we can." End quote, period. Now, for those of you who don't know the history between Ryan Garcia and Oscar De La Hoya, they are now back on good terms. There was some bad blood, some bad beef a little over a year ago with the two of them, but it seems like Ryan Garcia is back on the Golden Boy boxing promotion company in terms of being a fighter under the company, representing the company. This instance, though, not a good look for Golden Boy Promotions, not a good look for King Ryan Garcia, not a good look just in general. So I personally hope that Ryan Garcia is able to work through whatever it is he's going through. Because again, every day somebody is going through something, whether mentally, physically, emotionally, or all three wrapped up in what could be the worst event or events possible in terms of working through something. So Ryan, I hope you get it together, my guy. And I hope anybody else that is struggling through something, like that's truly struggling through something, is able to find the outlet and able to find the help that they're looking for. Because it's not easy to admit that you have something wrong or that you're dealing with something, because everybody these days, seemingly enough, it feels like we're just nitpicking and we're just picking out flaws, but we're not really trying to help people through those flaws. As much as people want to sit there and point fingers at everybody else, there's always 3 or 4 fingers pointed back at you. That has literally been one of my philosophies since I left college the first time. And I try my best to stand by that personally, but in terms of this entirety of the incident, when it comes to Ryan Garcia, all this is not a great look for him right now. And again, I really hope that I agree with old Golden Boy Oscar De La Hoya, that I hope the time that he has away from the sport is healing for him. I hope he's able to find his way back to the path that he was taking prior to the, what could, I guess I could call it a spindle of unfortunate emotions and events following the, what was once deemed a win over Devin Haney. And we're going to get to Devin Haney in the next couple episodes, because I think this string of events isn't just affecting Ryan Garcia. It's obviously affected Devin Haney in some way, because he was the opponent on that 420 card who ended up initially taking the loss to Ryan Garcia, and now is that contest has been deemed a no contest, essentially due to those findings. But there has also been news reported that Devin Haney has been fined a couple different times or gotten reprimanded a couple different times in different ways for the way that he rehydrates after weigh-ins, things like that. And there is a literal time window when you can and when you cannot rehydrate before and after weigh-ins and during fight, like the fight festivities. Obviously, during the fight, cornerman, coach, that type of thing, cut man, obviously is going to hydrate you as you're sitting in the corner. However, outside of the allotted time periods that is suggested or presented in terms of rehydrating, there's literally rules. So probably don't try to rehydrate before you're supposed to, because essentially if you rehydrate before, or excessively rather, you end up being heavier than what you were when you weighed in, depending on your diet, things like that. I'm not going to get into that. Those of you who have fought or have done a sport where you have to cut weight or make weight for a sport, everybody in that aspect knows what I'm talking about. So furthermore, Oscar De La Hoya makes his comments on X, and Ryan Garcia also, ironically following that, was seen on Instagram doing some training in his gym, his team's gym, that type of thing. So I suppose who really knows, because there are so many different organizations, federations, installments of professional boxing. So we don't know, but in terms of the New York State Athletic Commission, he is serving a 1-year suspension for that and is now currently expelled by the World Boxing Council, or the WBC. And we will have more details on that in the weeks and days to come as we get more. Moving on into the next topic of our docket here, that is on the Mack Truck Podcast. If you're listening live, thank you for joining. I'm sorry, for whatever reason, I cannot see comments currently as it stands. Furthermore, I appreciate it, so keep sending them and I'm going to be able to look at them when we're done. So the question of the day, going back to our last episode last week, outside of the fact that Caitlin Clark has played almost half of her WNBA rookie season, and with Bronny James having been the 55th pick overall in the second round of the NBA draft, who has the bigger target on their back and why? A lot of people that I asked this question to, or that replied to my question in the Mack Truck Podcast Facebook group, said Caitlin Clark, and rightfully so. And honestly, I tend to agree. And I'm going to say this, I tend to agree because of the magnitude of player that Caitlin Clark was coming out of the University of Iowa and has been coming into her essential WNBA pro career birth, if you will. On the flip side, I think Bronny James also has an equally as big target on his back because of who his pedigree is, who his predecessor is, which happens to be LeBron James Sr. or his father. He is LeBron James Jr. or Bronny James. Obviously, LeBron James Sr. is his father. Some people call him the GOAT. I call him the king. He is the king of basketball. That is a fact. I can honestly say that. GOAT, not so much. Again, the way I see it in terms of that whole entire conversation, LeBron James is the king, Michael Jordan is the GOAT, Kobe Bryant is the Black Mamba. All very great and GOAT-esque in their own respects, but all different at the same time. Now, I think the better that Bronny James gets into his NBA career, because mind you, he just got into the NBA, just got a contract, just played his first NBA game, like worth minutes, worth like actually watching televised in the summer league itself. He only dropped 4 points, which was his college average, so he's already meeting that. The point of the matter is, when it comes to generational talents like Caitlin Clark, when it comes to generational pedigrees like LeBron James, Bronny James Jr., father-son duos, if you will, there's always, seemingly enough, there always seems to be a little bit bigger light on the younger of the duo in terms of father-son, siblings, that type of thing. And I think, and don't quote me on this, I mean, you can if you want to, I suppose, because it's something that I'm thinking. It's not coming from anybody else. The ideas are coming from other people, but the way I'm thinking about this is Bronny James is literally the son of the king in LeBron James Sr. when it comes to NBA basketball or basketball across the board. You don't think that he even has a smidgen of his father's talent? Because I can almost guarantee you, if LeBron James Jr., Bronny James, however you refer to him as, if he even gets a inclination of the talent that his father had and has still to this day, getting into his 40s and still playing NBA basketball at a high level, I think Bronny James will in fact be better than his dad. It's going to take him a long time to get there. But if he's got the drive and the talent like his father does, and with that name, I feel like you kind of have to. It's not, you don't really get a choice. You're kind of born into it. It's not going to happen overnight, obviously. Just like with Caitlin Clark on the flip side. people were so damn determined that she was going to come into the WNBA and drop 45 points a night. Everybody that has been a realistic fan or has played the damn sport of basketball on any side knew, and outside of the extra vitriol that was said about Caitlin Clark that was not basketball related, everybody knew that the transition from college to the professionals is literally a transition. It's going from one extreme to another extreme. You're leaving one extreme where you have been for 4 solid years and have dominated for 4 solid years, and you're inserting yourself into a league of individuals that are exactly like you, if not better. And she has known that. Those of us who have been having these actual in-depth conversations know that. Fact of the matter is, the magic doesn't happen overnight. Rome was not built in a day, and building a professional resume pedigree also falls under that umbrella of things not being made and created and accomplished over damn night. And this kind of we're kind of actually rolling into the first part of our rebuttal in terms of Prescott Kelly and his outlook of Bronny James. Like I said, I personally think Bronny James has all the potential to be better than his dad. He's only 19. And let's peel that back for 10 seconds. Some of y'all that are out here just trolling, and not even good trolling, because I'll tell you this, there's a reason I used to have 5 Facebook pages, because all I would do was troll, because I, for whatever reason, thought that was fun. Not super great look, especially looking back at myself, who I turned into now to what I was then. Was it fun? Great. Is it time to change and move on and grow up a little bit? Absolutely. Point is Bronny James is 19 years old. He is fresh out of college, out of the University of Southern California. Okay. Again, he averaged 4 points a game. Was more a facilitator in terms of being that shooting guard, point guard, combo guard in his talents. And you also have to realize he was coming off the bench on one of the top programs of basketball in terms of historically. When are y'all going to grow up and realize that 99% of these people that, and like I said, when I say this in terms of trolling, I am not exempt from my own comments. I would not have said it if I wasn't trying to hold myself to a higher standard personally. But the fact that y'all are out here trolling 90% of these people, whether it's Angel Reese, whether it's Caitlin Clark, whether it's Bronny James, the fact that you are trolling these people and making yourself look stupid because of some of the things that are coming out of your mouth to get attention on sporting engines, Facebook pages, like ESPN, Fox Sports, CBS, NCAA, whatever it is. Y'all are making these ironic and weird ass comments, and then seemingly enough, sounding like you're trying to fit in because they did something good or they made a debut or whatever it is. Look, baby girl, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You either need to pick a side and stay on that side, or you pick a side and really actually try to analyze it. Actually try to hone in on it. Actually try to see, okay, what is it that everybody sees about such and such? I may not agree with it, but what is it? What is it that somebody sees about fucking Barney the purple dinosaur? You have to be able to make your own opinions and decisions. Obviously, that's a thing. Everybody thinks things differently, sees things differently. Great. However, when you come into a space and you sound and act uneducated, you're going to get the same type of energy back. I don't understand how many times I got to try to tell people, there's some people like, oh, well, you used to do it all the time. Damn straight. Absolutely. I have no problem admitting that. But the operative phrase that you used, sis, was used to. There's a reason I stopped. There's a reason I was just like, this is not really the direction I'm trying to go with who I am as a person, athlete, and content creator. Not the way I'm trying to go. Point of the matter is some of the vitriol that especially these young athletes, like I said, like Angel Reese, like a Kennedy Carter, Caitlin Clark, Bronny James, even his dad, who still to this day at 40 years old gets the most hate. And I used to be one of those people. And I'm like, man, I really cannot stand this man. And then I step back, and I wonder if people thought that about me in terms of my athletic career. So I'm like, okay, let me stop being so harsh and just insert myself into those types of situations in terms of being a dominant athlete, because I'm not afraid to admit it. Yes, I'm a damn good athlete. I may not be on a professionally paid level, but if you've ever seen me play a sport, or if you've ever played a sport with me, you know exactly how dominant and good I am. I'm not great. I'm not saying I'm the best, but first of all, I'm the queen of mental warfare. Just like LeBron James is, he will get into your head without even trying. Like that is my main point is y'all are talking about these athletes like they're going to see your comments. Unless you're Antonio Brown, okay, 99% of these athletes rather are not going to see your comments. Like personally, they may say, oh, somebody may send them a screenshot or whatever, just because like, oh, like there's always that one person in your life that's either trying to look out for you in some form of way, or they're trying to be like, haha, look what this person said. I just wanted you to say it, see it type of thing. Either way, if somebody's talking about you, whether good or bad, that means you're doing something right. That means you're focused on what you need to be focused on. That is something my dad used to drill into us every day, whether it was a sporting practice, whether it was a music concert, whether it was grades in school. I mean, with him being a college professor, we didn't really have a choice, but that's neither here nor there. Point is, if somebody is talking about you, that means you're doing what you need to do. And that means you're doing something right. If people got time to talk about you, they're not focused on what they need to be focused on. That's my overall point. So some of y'all who want to be out here still and act goofy and say some weird stuff and, try to get likes or attention. And there's literally people who do that, and that's fine. But just don't be surprised when people start to act different or maneuver around you differently. Look, everybody wants to have a good time when it comes to stuff, whether we're joking around, sports, the Grand Poobah, Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin, Tigger, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, whoever. Point is we all want to have a good time and be funny and, get attention, whatever it is. But when do you step back and be like, this really isn't my vibe? And some people never grow out of that, and that's okay. But again, just don't be surprised when people start to maneuver around you differently, because you're still, in a different mind space, and some people are trying to mature or whatever the case is. Fact of the matter is, we're moving on into the WNBA recap here on the Mack Truck Podcast. Again, stats, games, all this stuff that we're talking about right now from this past weekend. Like I said, we did take the rest of that 4th of July weekend off. Just a little bit of reboot, a little bit of a couple days off. Also had scheduled to do one yesterday, but for whatever reason, the entirety of a headache I had, it wasn't clicking. Don't know why, but I feel great right now. So we're giving it to you. WNBA recap, Washington at Minnesota. Washington drops this one on the road, 67-74. Shatori Walker-Kimbrough, 15 points, goes 50% from the field at 5 for 10 and 50% from the free throw line at 1 for 2. Courtney Williams, 17 points, 7 for 16 from the field and 50% from the free throw line at 2 for 4. Rebounds, Maisha Hines-Allen, 11 rebounds, 8 defensive boards, 3 O boards. Dorka Junez, 11 rebounds, just like Ms. Hines-Allen, 9 defensive boards, 2 O boards. Maisha Hines-Allen again on the assist stat line. She has literally filled out the past 4 stat lines that I have done in terms of anything that the Washington Mystics have done, and I love to see it. 6 assists, 2 turnovers, played 28 minutes. Courtney Williams, again, another person who's filled out the stat sheet a lot when I've done these recaps. 7 assists, 4 turnovers total for the whole game, and played 33 minutes. Moving into one of the biggest games, and obviously you should know who I'm talking about if you follow the entirety of the WNBA. The New York Liberty drop one at Gainbridge, Painbridge Feedhouse. Properly given to them on a silver platter by the Indiana Fever. The New York Liberty drop one, 78-83. And I'm going to tell you this. Much like the Phoenix Mercury Indiana Fever game, made me very angry. I was very cussing. Listen, it was bad. And I'm sitting here like, okay, it's not, we have been in much terrible positions before playing this exact same team. So the fact that the Indiana Fever just started out so hot and fell back a little bit and then heated it up again and then carried the heat into the end of the game is what did it for me. We are starting to close out games and we're starting to become a little bit more of a formidable foe when it comes to some of these bigger teams. Furthermore, Sabrina Ionescu, who quietly enough has been scorching people per normal, but just the fact that she's no longer on the Seattle Storm. Okay. Out here just scorching people. 22 points, 9 for 23 from the field, and obviously 100% from the free throw line at 0 for 0 because she didn't get fouled and didn't go to the free throw line. Caitlin Clark, who has herself a game and makes history. We'll get to the history part in a second here. 19 points, 7 for 17 from the field, and 100% from the free throw line at 2 for 2. Jonquel Jones, 12 rebounds total, 10 D boards, 2 O boards. Caitlin Clark, again, filling the stat sheet. 12 rebounds total, 12 rebounds defensively, also across the board, no O boards. Assist, buckets, machine with Breanna Stewart, 6 assists, 1 turnover, 36 minutes. Caitlin Clark, 13 assists, 4 turnovers total, and 38 minutes. And I'm going to tell you this right now. For those of y'all who really, again, fall under the last topic as far as not wanting to grow mentally when it comes to at least social media and things of that nature, when we're trying to troll people or trying to pretend that people are not as good as we want to make them out to be type of thing. Caitlin Clark is the first rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double. Like, let's put that into perspective right now. There has not been another rookie who has done that. Caitlin Clark is the only person right now, 2024, triple-double. Literally, bang. I mean, it's phenomenal to see. And like I said, the fact that the Fever are seemingly enough slowly starting to find their footing and starting to keep their competitive edge. Like, they'll start out hot and then they'll get blown out of the water, or they'll get blown out of the water and then they'll get super, super hot at the end and then just ticky-tacky things. Just don't, finish out a game. Mental mistakes, things like that. Fact of the matter is, they're coming. Just like everybody else in the WNBA specifically. This is currently a 12-team league. There is supposed to be 4 to 6 teams added within the next the next season of the WNBA. Let's just think about that. There was more teams in installment in the early to mid 90s when the NBA started in 1997. So let's just keep that into perspective, okay? Fact of the matter is, there's always going to be somebody better than you. There's always going to be somebody that is doing, in their own right, doing the same thing, if not recording their own history. We're going to get to that here with the last recap of the WNBA recap here. But to move on, the Atlanta Dream dropped 1 in Connecticut, 67-80 versus the Connecticut Sun. Alicia Gray drops 19 points, goes 7 for 11 from the field, and hits 100% for 4 for 4 from the free throw line. DeWanna Bonner, who also seemingly always seems to have herself a night. And again, and I'm going to put this in here, it's not even a shameless plug. She got snubbed for the Olympic team. Don't give a damn what you say. You're not about to argue with me, because if you watch this damn game, you know what she could have added to the damn team. Point of the matter, 23 points, 7 for 11 from the field, just like Alicia Gray, and also goes 100% from the free throw line at 2 for 2. I'm going to tell you this. I don't know anybody who has disagreed with me in terms of DeWanna Bonner. And Alyssa Thomas, her running mate. We're going to get to Alyssa Thomas here shortly. It's just, for me, some of these veterans, as far as the Olympic team, I feel like have been snubbed, but then who do you replace who's on the team currently? It's just, there's just so much good talent in a league that's just unfortunately very small currently as it stands, as I'm talking to you guys right now. It's very agitating across the board. But moving on into more stats, Letitia Amahir, 8 rebounds, 2 D boards, 6 offensive boards. Alyssa Thomas, 7 boards total, 5 defensive boards, 2 O boards. Assist stat line here, Tina Charles, who I swear is in her own right becoming the assist machine for the Atlanta Dream. And if they could just find one or two more pieces, I feel like they would also start to build the consistency that they have been trying to build seemingly enough with the season. Okay. There are some of those bottom tier teams that look like they are heating up. It's just whether or not they can find the consistency and keep it. Okay. Tina Charles, 4 assists, no turnovers, 23 minutes. Alyssa Thomas, again, on the stat line per normal, 9 assists, 1 turnover total for the whole game, plays 25 minutes. Alyssa Thomas is probably one of my favorite players that has grown on me. Like, I was never a huge fan of Alyssa Thomas because I could just never understand her psyche, but her psyche is very much like, I don't give a damn. Like, I'm here to play this sport and you're not going to walk through me. And I'm here for that. Moving on into second to the last recap here of the Mack Truck Podcast in terms of women's basketball. That is the WNBA. Dallas Wings, who unfortunately have had kind of a rough go around this season, drop a big one in Vegas, 85-104 versus the current champions that are the Las Vegas Aces, 85-104. Odyssey Sims, who gets re-signed by the Dallas Wings. 25 points, 11 for 18 from the field, 100% from the free throw line because she did not shoot any. A'ja Wilson, the greatest player in the world currently as it stands. It's not debatable. That's not biased. That's just basketball. Okay. 28 points, 11 for 22 from the field, and 75% at 3 for 4 from the free throw line. Natasha Howard, 8 rebounds, 7 defensive boards, 1 offensive board. A'ja Wilson again, 10 rebounds, 7 D boards, and 3 O boards. Odyssey Sims on the assist line, 5 assists total, 2 turnovers, played 34 minutes. And Jackie Young, big number 0. Again, 5 assists for her, 1 turnover total, and played 29 minutes. And it's always hard for me to watch the Vegas Aces because there's literally, I don't think there's a person on the Aces team that I dislike. Literally, I don't think there's a person on that team that I dislike, with Coach Becky Hammond included in all that. It's very hard because, obviously I'm still thinking of Iowa days with Kate Martin and Caitlin Clark and Megan Gustafson and Kate Martin. And I'm like, man, why can't they all just play together? But it honestly makes it a little bit more fun for me personally because I can watch my own team in the Indiana Fever, and then I can watch, and I can fully admit that the Aces are my secondary team in Kate Martin, Kelsey Plum, A'ja Wilson, okay, Becky Hammond, Megan Gustafson. I could keep going. It's been nice to be able to watch some of the Fever games and then, they're not playing each other, so I'm going to go over here and watch the Aces. And it's been nice to go back and forth. I can't deny the fact that the Aces are my secondary team. It's kind of annoying because they're so damn good. And I'm like, oh my God, just stop beating people. But when you're that good and your team is that stacked with talent, how can you not? It makes no sense to me. Fact of the matter is, when I get into our last recap here in terms of the WNBA, just from the games this past weekend, the Chicago Sky go to Seattle and drop one by 13, 71-84. But this was a good game. And I'm going to tell you why, because somebody else who is a teammate now of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, as far as the WNBA All-Star team, makes history during this game. And we're going to get to that just in a second here. Quick stats: Kennedy Carter, 21 points, 7 for 22 from the field, 75% from the free throw line at 7 for 8. Nneka Ogwumike, 24 points, 9 for 15 from the field, and also goes 75% from the free throw line at 5 for 6. Angel Reese, 14 rebounds, 10 defensive boards, and 4 offensive boards. Nneka Ogwumike, 13 rebounds, 10 defensive boards, 3 offensive boards. And the assist line, which seemingly enough is a little random, but not so random in terms of the players, just the fact that they don't really, there's only one person on the stat line right now that has names in 2 stats. That's Nneka Ogwumike with points and rebounds. Fact of the matter is, Marina Mabrey 6 assists, 4 turnovers, played 31 minutes. Skylar Diggins-Smith, who hits a driller at the end of the game, just step back, like almost used up all the shot clock, step back, drives to the left and hits it from beyond the arc and just stroked. I was like, oh, okay. 6. No, I lied. Because, again, my handwriting is terrible. Point of the matter is, she had 8 assists, 3 turnovers total, and played 33 minutes. And here is where the history comes into play for Angel Reese. Angel Reese is now the leading streak holder of double-doubles in the WNBA. That's rookies, that's vets. She now has 13 consecutive double-doubles. She tied and surpassed Candace Parker in the same game. Candace Parker had 12. Angel Reese had 12 in the middle of the game and ended up getting to that 13th one. And you really love to see it, frankly. And again, I can fully admit that I am an Angel Reese fan. Not a super fan. I love her. I love her style of play. I love how aggressive she is. And I love the fact that she does not give a damn what nobody out here has to say. Like, are her antics wild? Absolutely. But have you done some wild shit before? Absolutely. And you're not going to sit here and tell me you haven't. Because if that were the case, you were either born into the Duggar family, who does not do a thing, and is super sheltered. No offense to them. That's how they live. But when it comes to the world of sports or athletics or just, I don't know, being slightly normalized and not sheltered. Now, again, not that shelter's being a bad thing, just not for a lot of people. Point is, Angel Reese doesn't care. And she's willing to play or pick up that villain title, whatever it is. She's willing to do it and take it and take ownership of it. And she does it well. And in the public eye, yeah, it's about me too. I'm part of the reason these numbers are growing. I'm part of the reason the fandom is growing. And she's damn right. And anybody who cannot see that is literally a hater, literally biased. And that's okay. If you truly feel that she doesn't add anything because like that's how you personally feel, go off, sis, and keep the same energy. But it is okay to change your mind and to change your perspective. Hell, I've done it. And I used to be a stickler in terms of like who I liked and who I didn't like and why. Until I saw or started paying attention to Angel Reese's game more. And now the topic comes of who's going to be Rookie of the Year when it comes to the WNBA. And somebody had messaged me this topic. And I can't say that I'm exactly upset about it because realistically, really realistically, there is a very good chance that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, who are the two front runners right now, Angel Reese being one, Caitlin Clark being a short behind her too, and I mean like very short, could literally end up being co-rookie of the years. They're comparable to the fact that they are both rookies in the WNBA. They both had great college careers, that type of thing. But in terms of positionally and how they play their games at the position, two different things. You almost cannot compare them. You can compare, okay, defensive touts. Caitlin Clark has gotten a lot better on defense. Not so much a defensive liability, but still enough to where not sure if the consistency is there yet for her to be trusted. Angel Reese, who is a very good defensive player. I mean, the streak of double-double shows it. She can also shoot. She has also worked on her three-point shooting, which is another weapon as a post player and a center player could have and should really have, especially if your team just ends up playing all 5 out. You gotta know how to be able to shoot them threes from the corner, from the top of the arc, and the mid-range shots. Angel Reese has a very good mid-range shot. She's also currently etched her name in history, as has her WNBA All-Star teammate in Caitlin Clark. Like, there's really not much for comparison in terms of who has the advantage. Caitlin Clark has spiked the game just as much as Angel Reese. Angel Reese has spiked the game and fandom and such just as much as Caitlin Clark. So there's personally to me right now, I don't see how you can pick anybody right this second. I think it's really going to turn around after the Olympic break when both players and both teams have played the All-Star game. They've gotten the rest that they needed. They've had the much needed just team practice and team camaraderie that's going to come from this Olympic break. I think after the Olympic break, that's when it's really going to just take off. and it's a fact. Like it happens in football, it happens in baseball, it happens in NBA, it happens in hockey, it happens in bags, cornhole, whatever y'all call that thing where you throw the little thingy things in a little hole and y'all be getting mad and it be on the Ocho channel, that thing. Point of the matter is that currently right now, and I feel like this is a more collective answer than people want to admit, but right now it's literally tied. And then it depends on what way you want to take it. If you want to take the popularity vote, I'm still not convinced that Caitlin Clark has a super high advantage, but I think she's got the edge in terms of popularity. If it comes to overall fandom from outside of the Midwest, outside of the fact that Angel Reese plays for the Chicago Sky, I think Angel Reese has the advantage because it depends on where you are, where the fandom is for that, just these two players specifically across the board. Fact is, it's tied to me personally. And just to get into our last topic here, the rebuttal for Mr. Prescott Kelly, that is the topic of which generation has it better. He is an 80s baby. I am a 90s baby. Ironically, he, on his, like I said, his latest episode from this weekend, he was talking about how the, generation of 80s babies kind of has it the best in terms of, knowing how things were ran and, controlled and everything like that, back then when they were growing up, as far as like old timers, things like that. And then, where he says that they were the last ones to be outside and all that other stuff. And this is my rebuttal. I was born in 92. I'm 32 years old. I'll be 33 in literally 5 months, 6 months, whatever it is. My generation, in terms of, I'm going to say early 90s babies. When I mean early, I mean literally 1989 to 1995. That is what I consider early 90s. That's me personally, whatever. Fact of the matter is my generation, for whatever reason, is considered millennials, and millennials get this interesting reputation of having terrible work ethic and not having any values. And I'm sitting here like, my generation loved to be outside. We loved to, at least where I grew up and how I was brought up as a kid, we all loved to be outside. We all loved to drink from the hose water. And if you didn't drink from the hose water, you was a weirdo. Okay. Like, we thrived on getting up, early morning, mid-morning during summer vacation, just piling all of our bikes into one neighborhood and just staying at that house for a couple hours. Then we, leave for whatever summer activities we had. And then if there was still time, we'd come back together and do it all again for the next couple hours before we got called for dinner or bedtime or whatever it is. I think where he's just a little flawed is I think he needs to expand that thinking in terms of the 80s babies have it the best. Really, 80s and 90s up until like that 97, 98 mark have it the best in terms of there is work ethic there. We're very multifunctional in terms of knowing how to use technology, but unfortunately, with the world we live in now, it being attached to our hip, but still remembering that like, hey, we got to go outside and we got to do this, A, B, C, and D, and still be able to enjoy what we have in front of us now, but still never forget rather how we grew up and where our work ethic and where our motivation, comes from. And I think with that, that's the only part personally that I disagree with, as far as like, yeah, you might have been born in the 80s, but that doesn't mean you have it the best, because the 90s babies literally saw everything. Like, yeah, we had TVs and radios, but it wasn't anywhere as prominent as it is now. Like, I think the world of technology and social media and that type of thing, like I didn't get my first my first MySpace page, I think it was. I didn't get that till I was like a 7th grader, 8th grader, maybe. Like, social media, well, yes, it's evolved and it's been out for a while. Like, depending on how old you are, it really hasn't been out for that long. Like, the way of the world in terms of how things maneuver and how things are, like, those of us in, like I said, I say baby boomers to 97 are the era of TV state, like like local TV stations, local radio, newspapers, and word of mouth. Like word of mouth travels far. And I still personally to this day go by that. Word of mouth travels far. Oh, I heard this from this, or did you go to this thing? I heard it on the radio. Like that's the generation that we live in. The generation now, basically 98 and on, completely in that realm of not having work ethic, not wanting to work, just outright being rude and disrespectful to everybody, not even parents, not even elders, like, and just not really oversharing, but oversharing in the term of not allowing others to share what they want to share. And our generation is real good at, okay, we can listen and we can give you our feedback or whatever it is. But if we disagree with something or we think of something in the middle of what you're saying, we're going to say it and then apologize for interrupting. Where the generation now, it's like, oh, okay, you said what you said and it don't really matter. But I mean, that type of thing happens to everybody though. It's not just a generation based. Point of manner, at least for me in terms of this rebuttal with P. Scott, is I think he needs to broaden that timetable of who has it the best, because depending on what you were born in, that type of thing, or era rather, depending on what, where you were born and placed in this time space continuum that is human life as we're speaking about, really also determines who you are right now in this very moment in time. It is, as long as you're, I'd say 13 and up, frankly. That's just me, but that concludes the rebuttal for now. I'm sure we'll have more. P. Scott, thank you for the topic. Everybody, thank you for listening and joining us here today on the Mack Truck Podcast. Again, you can find us on pretty much any social media, X, Twitter, whatever you call it, Facebook, StreamYard, Snapchat, TikTok, all them things. I have it personally. You can find me there. You can also find everybody else that I've mentioned. P. Scott, Megan Price, the 806 Sports Radio Show, Duke the Truth Barber, and Chris Fetz, the Barber, also on those platforms. And if you're tuning in and you're tuned in this far, because we're damn near at 75 minutes. Okay. Fact is, thank you for tuning in. Again, if you are struggling with something, reach out to somebody that you trust. Find a way to get through it, because putting your own life at risk, putting other people's life at risk is not the way to go. If you don't know how to podcast, bang that follow button. In the illustrious words of Ellen DeGeneres, be kind to one another. And in the illustrious words of the great Yinzer, Pat McAfee himself, be a friend, tell a friend something nice. It may change their life. Goodbye!